purpose of tonight's meeting is to present to you the preliminary design of Brighton Boulevard between 44th and Race Court, just a little south of Race. And so we will have a chance to go through in a little more detail some of the information that you've seen on the boards, and for you to ask questions. And we have the design team with us. So just for your information, we have City and County of Denver folks present. Eric Schachman's going to talk a little bit about the North Denver Cornerstone Collaborative effort that's gone on to date and how we got here. John LaSala is the project manager for the City and County of Denver. Steve Nally's not with us today. I think most of you know Erica Martinez. And Jane Bohan with planning is in the back. And so if you need to find any of the City and County of Denver folks, they're here. The project design team, the consulting team that's here, Rick Holdsnow is here, and he will be presenting the information on the actual planning process. Erica Olson is with us. I'm Pat Noyes. Jessica and Eileen are both here to talk about some of the more detailed aspects of both the bike and some of the landscape and water quality issues. So there's lots of resources here for you to get your questions answered. And so with that, I'm going to ask Eric to come up and give you a little bit of background on how we got to this project, where we are tonight.
Okay, are we recording this? Do I need to stand at the microphone, or can I walk around? Do we know? I can walk around? Okay. So hi, I'm Eric Schachman. If you can't hear me, let me know, but I have a loud voice. I see many familiar faces from the CAC meeting and from other previous meetings. So I'm with the North Denver Cornerstone Collaborative, which is a division of the mayor's office at the city. And my specific responsibility is overseeing the redevelopment of the National Western Stock Show, of which this portion of Brighton Boulevard is kind of the front door to. So a little bit about NDCC, so folks kind of know the who we are. So NDCC is an initiative by the mayor to redevelop what we call the corridor, or a portion of the corridor of opportunity, which is essentially between Denver International Airport and downtown, essentially along the new light rail, commuter rail that runs from the airport to downtown, and specifically addressing areas of the city that historically have been underserved by the city. So NDCC, it's part of a much larger vision, which is the corridor of opportunity, but NDCC is specifically focused on 6 projects within this broader area. So we've got the global Elyria, Swansea neighborhood plans, which I'm sure many of you participated in. We have the redevelopment of National Western Center, Brighton Boulevard corridor redevelopment, which this is a portion of it. Specifically, the part that is Brighton Boulevard corridor redevelopment is specifically south of 44th through the Rhino neighborhood up to 44th, and then from 44th to Race is an extension of that work and part of the National Western Center redevelopment. We're doing a series of projects in River North, new parks, pedestrian access, as well as work around the new light rail and commuter rail stations that are in River North and the Elyria, Swansea, and Globeville neighborhoods, and then the reconstruction of I-70 between Colorado and Brighton Boulevard. So those are the 6 projects that kind of that we at NDCC have taken primary responsibility for, and are working within all the various departments of the city to help coordinate and to help push forward, to push this agenda forward, not at what might be a typical snail's pace, but at a much more accelerated pace, so that folks in these neighborhoods, so that you guys actually see action, see stuff happening, more than just talk, but actually out there doing projects. So what we're here to talk about today is the Brighton Boulevard section of the National Western Center, which runs from 44th Street up to Race. And the goal is really to build on the progress that has been made to date. So I'm sure many of you participated in numerous sessions, whether it's the Elyria, Global Elyria Swansea neighborhood plans, the visioning that was done in 2013 specifically for Brighton Boulevard, the National Western Center master plan, which also addressed Brighton Boulevard between 44th and Race. The goal here, the goal is to implement these various visions, incorporate all of those together into a design that works, and actually put this in place, to take all of those visions, put them together, and design a road that takes Brighton Boulevard up from the River North neighborhood all the way up to Race Street, and one that works complementing National Western Center and the neighborhoods around it. We're a little bit more accelerated than we may have anticipated in producing our design for this section of Brighton Boulevard, but we're impacted by a few things. First of all, I-70 is moving forward. I-70 is in process. CDOT is already out on the street with a request for qualifications from developers to redo I-70, and within the scope of work for the I-70 redevelopment is the intersection of Brighton Boulevard and I-70. So it basically meant to us that we've got to get in front of that. We've got to get ahead of that, and we have to give CDOT a design specifically for that intersection that they can include in all of the documents that they give to the developers who are going to be doing the larger project, the Brighton Boulevard to I-70 project, to Colorado Boulevard project. So our goal is to produce a preliminary design. We're only taking this design through 30% complete, but to produce enough of a document that we can give to CDOT where the developers will understand our vision, understand what we specifically want for this stretch of road, so that the developer will build what we want and not necessarily what they want for this intersection. So that was a big part of it. We also have to the south of us, the city is going out right now and collecting bids to oversee the construction, the finalization of design and construction of Brighton Boulevard from 29th Street up to 44th Street. So we want to make sure that whatever we design north of 44th kind of speaks well, is consistent with what they're designing south of 44th Street. Because the last thing we want is a road that is very, very recognizable and consistent up to 44th Street, and then something completely different to the north. We want consistent design. So we brought the design team in now to work on that design so that it corresponds well to the design to the south. National Western Center development, obviously the master plan was approved in March of this year, so we're moving forward with all of our preliminary work on National Western Center, and Brighton Boulevard is the gateway from the east and from the south to the National Western Center, so we want to start moving that design forward so that we can begin to further the design of the overall complex. And then also lastly, North Metro Fast Tracks, there's going to be a new station that opens in 2018 at 49th and Brighton, and we want to make sure that we have a road that properly serves it. So we want to get moving on that design so that we're far enough along and we're not behind RTD when they go live with their new station in 2018. We want to have a road that's complementary and serves that station road. So, and then lastly, which is also very important, is the earlier we can get started in a design process, the better understanding we have of overall budgets, of schedules, of impact of everything else that's going on in Denver, all the other activity, how that's going to impact our design and construction schedule. So the earlier we can get started with preliminary work, the better. So a little bit of history about where we launched this design process. So 2013 Brighton Boulevard redevelopment project. So they started in 2013 kind of visioning out what Brighton Boulevard would look like. So to orient you, north is this way. We're currently standing in the National Western Center, which is over here. Here's I-70, and here's Brighton Boulevard that comes through. So our area, what we're specifically focused on with this meeting and this design process, is the preliminary design, essentially from right here, from 44th Street, up to just beyond this curve. We're not tackling this intersection yet at 44th and Race, just yet. It's a lot more complex than we're ready to get into because of BNSF, because of the existing underpass there. But we're taking our 30% design from 44th up to just past this curve. And the different colors you see here are the different character areas that were identified in that visioning plan with this purple section obviously being called the National Western Center Character Zone. So the next stage of well actually, to clarify, to dive in a little bit in 2013, excuse me, is this was kind of the typical, the vision, the expanded streetscape that was envisioned in that 2013 document. So obviously, you can see it's a tree-lined street. It has water quality embedded in the streetscape. It's a widened road. I think what we're seeing here is probably, yeah, this is 46th Street to Race Street. So this is the typical section between 46th and Race. It's a widened street with a turning lane. It's a lot prettier than what we have right now, basically. So the next step, kind of taking it to the next step, was Elyria Swansea neighborhood plans, where we dug in a little bit deeper, and here you can see incorporation. We now have a parking lane here on the east side of the street. This is meant to kind of simulate what potential density, potential construction or building types could be on the east side of the street. West side of the street is the plaza that will exist in front of the expo hall that's envisioned in the National Western Center Master Plan. What you see here is a single lane of parking along the street, which is buffered from the sidewalk by a tree lawn, which also serves for water quality. One lane of northbound traffic, and then 2 lanes of southbound traffic, with a two-directional bicycle track facility, and then the water quality with tree lawn to the west of that. So this is from the Elyria Swansea neighborhood plans. This was adopted a couple of years ago. And so this was kind of the launching pad for the design that SEH has been doing for the last 6 months. So here is a typical section that, moving from the Elyria Swansea neighborhood plans into the National Western Center Master Plan, planning. The hope is to now actually build it. But what you see here is an 80-foot right-of-way, which, as you saw in that graphic, you have your 6-foot sidewalk, you have an 8-foot wide tree lawn with water quality, you have a 10-foot wide flex lane, which is parking most of the time, and a traffic lane when necessary during high volume times, during National Western, during large events, and then one through lane of northbound traffic, two through lanes of southbound traffic, the 12-foot wide cycle track, 8-foot wide water quality and tree lawn, and then the plaza to the west of that, which bleeds into National Western Center. So here's an illustration of that, which specifically shows how we plan on addressing cycle traffic, or how in the National Western Center we plan on addressing cycle traffic, specifically through I-70. You can see that the goal is to avoid taking cycle traffic through here underneath I-70 and routing it around. So up 44th, the future Betty Cran Drive, and then over 47th back to Brighton Boulevard, and then up to New York. So National Western Center Plan is the last planning exercise that was undertaken before the design process that is going on now. And I'll hand it over to Rick Holtzno, who's from our design team, and he'll walk us through the work that they have done today.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks, everybody, for coming out tonight. You know, there's a lot of people that have been involved on the design side, and several of us are here tonight. So afterwards, if you want to ask us any questions, feel free to come up and just ask anybody on our team. A couple of folks will be coming up here to help me as we go along here. This is kind of a blow up of the area that this 30%, this preliminary design. And then as Eric talked about, there are several different zones in here. The gateway zone is right here. This is 44th is where we start. The event zone is here. It goes from off-ramp on I-70 to 48th Avenue. Station TOD zone along the future R2D station is from 48 to just past the curve, and then what's called the Northern Campus Gateway. So that sort of ties in with the plan that was done a couple of years ago. You saw the schematics of the sections there. This is a blow-up of those sections of what we're doing at this point. So there's the different segments here. This is in the I-70 area to the south. One of the things you see, this is the layout or the plan is per the CDOT design. What we're doing with part of our project is to provide them input on what the city would like to see on this portion of their project. So for example, if you drive through there now, there's that big wide concrete covered median that's just south of I-70. Well, there is a proposed median after the new construction as well, and we're proposing to provide a raised landscape median in that area instead of the concrete that's there now. We're also proposing south of I-70 a street side stormwater planner between 44th and I-70 to improve water quality in the area, and then a path through there. One of the things that we've noticed is, even though the long-term plan is to take cyclists through the national western area, there'll probably be an interim period before those roads are constructed, where we might be having to have people on their bicycles and pedestrians along Brighton Boulevard. So we're proposing a multi-use path, at least in an interim basis, in this area here along the I-70 area. This is the event zone. This is this area in here, what the section looks like. There are 2 lanes southbound, 2 through lanes southbound, 1 through lane northbound, and then a parking lane along the east side of the street. Proposed improvements on the east side are a sidewalk and a stormwater planner. The right-of-way on the east side will be the same as the current right-of-way. We're not proposing any widening of the right-of-way to the east. So we're not impacting the residents and businesses on that side. The driveways that are there now will remain. On the west, the widening that's proposed, you see it's 90-foot right-of-way, going from a 60-foot right-of-way currently. So that's all proposed to the west. And then again, another stormwater quality planter. And in between the stormwater planters, there are tree grates because the trees don't do that well in the narrower planters. So there'll be tree grates as well in between. And then there's a 2-way cycle track. It's a separate grade cycle track, we call it, protected cycle track. And then there's an 8-foot sidewalk that's also separate grade. It's 3 inches higher than the cycle track. And that's an 8-foot wide sidewalk. There are traffic signals proposed where there is one now at 47th. And then at 49th up here, the future 49th is proposed to have a traffic signal at that location at some point. And this is all tied into what's going to be happening with the National Western. And then as we get to the north area, we have more of a restricted right-of-way because of the Burlington Northern. There's a proposed bus stop just past the curve. RTD is proposing a bus stop there instead of right adjacent to their station because of sight distance. It's a safer location. But their station will be here and the bus stop will be right in this area here. And this is the a section along the bus stop. It's going to have a 10-foot pullout and then a multi-use 10-foot path next to that. The cycle track goes away because that is narrower. And then we still have the water quality planters on this side. Two 12-foot, 2 lanes on southbound again, and a parking flex lane and 1 lane north. Now, in the area of 47th, we do have an auxiliary lane, we call it, which is a turn lane proposed to turn right into the southbound right into the National Western. This is an example. This is put together by Tool Design Group of how that's going to lay out with the roadway, the stormwater planner in between. Now, because of the way, of course, the stormwater sits in the planner's level, so the planners are not at level. The concrete on planners isn't level, so they'll be kind of a separate grade there. And in between is where the tree planters will be. And then the two-way cycle track, and then a raised grade sidewalk next to that. Yeah, want to add anything to that, Jessica? Or you-
No, I mean, this, yeah, just gives you a different view of, some of the cross sections that were shown earlier, and, really just the hallmark of this design is these premium treatments and separations between modes of travel. So, between the travel lanes and the bike facility, we have the stormwater planter, as well as a vertical separation by a curb. And then, of course, between the bicycle traffic area and the sidewalk zone, like Rick mentioned, we have another small curb. So there's a vertical separation there as well. So really just a lot of separate spaces for the different modes that we'll be using the street.
I'll let Jessica talk about the different types of treatments there for multimodal as well.
Yeah, so in the previous rendering, you saw the truck, the light truck vehicle that was, the light truck that was headed down the street. And of course, as you know, the nature of this area, with the event center as well as the RTD station, there will be, truck activity, loading activity, really event-specific activity. So to really accommodate that in a safe way, what we've done is incorporate a best practice into the design, which you would be able to see on this plot behind me that shows the whole corridor. But at the intersections of 48th and 49th, where you do have turning vehicles, turning either RTD-related vehicles or truck vehicles, what we're showing is raised crossing. So where the cycle track, or also called protected bike lane, turns or crosses an intersection or a driveway, we've shown it as a raised crossing for vehicles. So as cars are going to enter that space, they're going to be slowed down by having sort of almost a speed table of sorts, speed hump of sorts. So that's really safe treatment that we've added to the design. And also shown here, these two images here and on the bottom, we're showing a protected intersection. These are examples of protected intersections in the Netherlands, actually. What we're doing is our design includes that type of treatment at the intersection of 47th. And that's really the hallmark of that treatment, is that bicycles, as they travel through the intersection, they remain separated from motor vehicle traffic. They remain separated from the most high-stress mode on the street next to them. So really, bikes are, you can actually see here, bikes are pulled away from the intersection so that they have their own crossing location. And then so when cars are turning, those cars can better see the bicyclists as they might be crossing the intersection. So really, this is an extremely safe design that gives people separation as well as spaces to wait at the intersections. You'll see that on the rendering, on the renderings over there. We have an image of how that actually would be applied at 47th Avenue.
Does the dedicated bike lane pretty much end at the station?
So we have, it does transition to a multi-use path, and then beyond that, we don't know what this ultimate sidewalk design will be, and that will really be sort of incorporated into some future transit-oriented development. So we have that as kind of a future coordination needed to be determined area. So.
Thanks, Jessica. Aline Marcus Flax with Studio CPG. I'm going to ask to come up and talk a little bit about the stormwater quality planters.
So we've been asked to include water quality treatment for the corridor within the right-of-way, and this is a pretty new thing for the city to actually treat water on site. And the city has started developing a series of details that we've included in our project. We're looking at a modified street-side stormwater planter, and this allows the water from the runoff from the street to go into a treatment area with a special medium in the soil there and then infiltrate through that media and then be released to the storm system. And there are plantings in those areas too that will be part of the streetscape. But these planters also create really interesting objects within that streetscape. They need to be separated so that there's no safety issues, and so there's a grade separation for each of those. And what we've tried to do is integrate a bunch of the streetscape elements, the things that you want to see in the streetscape, benches and bike racks and lights, pedestrian lighting, into the stormwater planters so that they all kind of read as a unit and we're not feeling cluttered within the streetscape. These are some examples of the stormwater planter type units. One of the really exciting things is that we can use the street side stormwater planter to separate the cycle tracks from the traffic, and that becomes a beautiful feature within that streetscape. There will be places in between the stormwater planters that are at grade with a tree planted in there, so that access isn't going to be limited going back and forth between these. They're not going to create a barrier, they're just elements within that streetscape.
Thanks, Eileen. And then the typical detail also shows a step-out zone along the curb, especially on the side where there's parking. There's 3 feet between the roadway and the stormwater planters, so that people can get out of their cars, or there can be parking meters and everybody wants those. So, and the other thing I want to mention about pedestrian access, one of the other things we're going to go back to CDOT with is improved crossing locations through their project. Additional striping, we've added a second crossing north of I-70 where they didn't have one proposed before. Because we understand a lot of the pedestrians from the north side of I-70 want to get down to the area to the south of I-70 where there's going to be new businesses, as there already are, developing in that area. As I mentioned, we have boards here with additional questions. The plan on the wall here has a little bit more detail and the specifics as you go down the corridor. You want to take a look at that. So, our plan right now is to complete the preliminary design at the end of this month. We have a set of plans that have been submitted for review. And then we'll submit the design to CDOT, National Western, RTD, for coordination with their designs. And then the city will move forward with this plan for the future, along with all the other things they have planned in the area.